80 years. That is how long it takes for a lie to become a religion. In America, we have a religion called Soldier Boy. For 8 decades, his face has been the steel in our spine. We built statues to him in every city square. We taught our children he was the saint who saved the world. But what if the saint was actually a parasite? Vought International never gave you a hero. They gave you a product wrapped in the stars and stripes. They sold you a myth to hide a monster, while real men bled out in the mud of Europe. A wealthy brat was polished in a laboratory. Today, we are opening the Black Vault. The files Vought thought they had burned forever. This is the absolute truth about Soldier Boy. The world remembers Benjamin as a humble patriot. But the files reveal a story of corporate greed. A trail of bodies stretching from New Jersey to Hiroshima. To understand the lie, we go back to the beginning. Before Compound V ever touched his blood. The failed 400, the secret origin. Every legend needs a clean origin story. Vaught's version is simple and poetic. Benjamin volunteered for a serum to fight the Nazis. But the real origin is buried in a mass grave. Beneath a concrete floor in New Jersey that smells of rot. Before Benjamin took the needle, there was Project Rebirth. Vought didn't start with a chosen one. They started with 400 real American soldiers. They were drafted from poor neighborhoods. Men whose families lacked the power to ask questions. They were injected with raw, unstable Compound V. The results were not heroic. They were biological horror. 399 men died in pure agony. Some had their skin liquefy in seconds, turning into sludge while they were still screaming. Others had their bones pierce their own lungs. The screams in that lab lasted for months. Vought desperately wanted to hide this failure. Benjamin was the only one whose DNA didn't reject it. He was just the one who didn't melt. Vought buried 400 bodies behind factory walls. Your hero was built on forgotten corpses. The Hollywood War, Normandy was a set. You have seen the black and white footage 1,000 times. Soldier Boy charging the beaches of Normandy, leading the infantry to a glorious victory. It is the most famous combat film in history. And it is a total, manufactured fake. Declassified Vought logs show the reality of D-Day. Real American boys were dying on Omaha Beach. Thousands bled out on the sand. But Soldier Boy was 3,000 miles away. He was in a massive soundstage in Burbank, California. Vought hired Hollywood's most expensive directors. They built a beach out of plywood and imported sand. The Nazis he killed were actually paid actors. German immigrants who needed money to survive. Vought spent millions to make it look real. But the only real thing was the arrogance of the star. Because Soldier Boy was too expensive to lose. He was a multi-billion-dollar asset. Vought couldn't risk their brand being killed. So, they faked the entire operation. They gave him a script instead of a mission. He played a winner on a television screen. He stole the glory from men who died. The Hiroshima sponge, the radiation experiment. Then came August 1945. This is the chapter Vought tried hardest to erase. When the bomb hit Hiroshima, the world stood in horror. But Vought International saw a new laboratory. The city was a burning graveyard. Vought dropped Soldier Boy into the 0 point. He wasn't there for a rescue mission. He was a corporate experiment. Vought wanted to know if Compound V could absorb radiation. For 3 days, Soldier Boy walked through the ruins. He walked like a biological sponge, soaking up the lethal isotopes into his cells, while survivors were melting from radiation sickness. His body absorbed the energy of a dead city, turning a global tragedy into a personal power-up. This is the secret behind his famous glowing eyes. He was a walking, breathing nuclear reactor. This is why he was forced to wear heavy, lead-lined glasses. He was protecting the public from radiation. Every child he hugged at a parade for 30 years. Every woman he kissed for a Vought photo op. He was poisoning them with invisible doses of energy. Vought knew he was a walking health hazard. The Silent Town, the Fairview Massacre. By the 1950s, the hero was a god. But gods hate being questioned. In 1953, Fairview began to protest. Local unions were tired of Vought's chemical plants. The runoff was poisoning their water and killing their kids. They planned a massive strike against the company. It would have exposed their environmental crimes. Vought sent Soldier Boy to restore peace. He arrived with a news crew. But that night, the power was cut in Fairview. The next morning, the town no longer existed. Not a single house was left standing. Not a single body was ever recovered. Vought released a press statement about a gas leak. But the truth was hidden in the craters. Circular impact marks, 6 feet wide, were everywhere. Soldier Boy hadn't stopped a protest with words. In a drunken rage, he used his shield. He spent the night systematically smashing the town to dust. He deleted an entire zip code. Vought spent millions to bribe the distant relatives. They scrubbed Fairview from every map in America. Today, it is just an empty, overgrown field. The bully behind the patriotic mask. Behind the scenes, the legend was even darker. Soldier Boy wasn't a team player or a leader. He was a domestic abuser with a superhero license. He led a team called Payback. But they weren't his brothers. They were his playthings and his victims. He spent his days mentally breaking every one of them. Physically breaking them to show his dominance. He didn't just bully them, he destroyed their spirits. He used his strength to remind them of their place. Remind them that Vought owned their souls. He was a sexist, a racist, and a violent narcissist. He couldn't stand sharing the spotlight with anyone. This is the man who claimed to represent the moral center. A man who spent his nights in violent orgies, while the public prayed at night for his safety. He wasn't a veteran of any real conflict. He was a corporate monster created in a test tube. He never knew a day of true struggle. The values he preached on television were just memorized lines. Lines he struggled to remember between drinks. The Soviet deal, trading an obsolete asset. Then came the 1984 mission in Nicaragua. This is where the public story usually ends, with Payback betraying their leader and handing him to Russia. But there is a deeper layer to this betrayal. Payback didn't act alone out of fear. They had the support of Vought. By the mid-80s, Soldier Boy was becoming a dinosaur. He was difficult to handle, aging, and expensive. Vought had a new project growing in a secret laboratory. A baby with red capes and laser eyes. They had Homelander in the pipeline. They didn't need the father to occupy the throne anymore. So Vought made a cold, calculated deal with the enemy. They contacted the Soviets and offered a trade. They would give Russia the world's most powerful soup, in exchange for raw materials and military intelligence. Payback was just the cleanup crew for the corporate handoff. Vought authorized the betrayal of their own mascot. They let their greatest hero be dragged away in chains. They faked a nuclear meltdown story to explain his death. He was just an obsolete piece of hardware. The Radioactive Ghost, survival in the dark. For 30 years he was a lab rat. A rat in a freezing, dark bunker in Russia. They pumped him full of experimental chemicals every day, trying to find the off switch for Compound V. They didn't find the switch, but they found a mutation. The decades of Russian experimentation changed his biology. Combined with the radiation he soaked up in 1945, it created a new, terrifying power within his cells. He wasn't just a strong man with a shield anymore. He had become a weapon of total depowerment. He became a living EMP for the soup population. Every time he blasted that energy, he erased Compound V. He erased the very thing that made a soup super. He became the nightmare of his own kind. When he finally escaped, he wasn't the man from the posters. Benjamin was long gone, replaced by something hollow. What came back was a radioactive ghost with a grudge. No purpose other than to destroy the empire that built him. He was no longer the face of the American flag. Conclusion: the legacy of the brand. Soldier Boy is the perfect symbol of the Vought lie. We see the shield, but we don't see the blood. We see the flag, but we don't see the corporate logo. For 80 years, America worshipped a ghost. A fake soldier, a fake hero, and a very real monster. He represented the best of Vought, greed and deception. His story isn't about heroism or sacrifice. It's about how easily a population can be fooled by a suit. The real heroes were the 400 men who died in that lab, while Benjamin sipped scotch on a set. Next time you see a hero on a billboard, ask yourself, is this a man or is this a brand? For Vought, the brand is the only survivor. The hero is just a ghost haunting the ruins of a lie. The truth is radioactive, and it is coming to light. Don't let the next legend blind you to the reality. Because the truth doesn't wear a cape. It remembers the names of the fallen. And it never, ever forgets a betrayal.